Hi,
There.
Sam.
Oh, Claire, how are you? How have you been?
I'm well. I'm well. I've been keeping busy. You've got a new avatar. That's not you, is it?
No,
No.
it's one of my favorite comics from Brooklyn, New York. That's Andrew Dice Clay, the
Uh-huh.
the dirty comedian, the filthy pu- uh, uh, you know a potty mouth, with all the from the 80s. He was a very, very popular. He's like emblematic, iconic of Brooklyn, New York City, way back when. He's like Trump, an icon from the time when New York was you know, at its most popular, when it was peaking, when it was the place to be. But it's no
Hmm.
longer. It's he's a nostalgic figure for me. He's not dead; he's still alive. But he's nostalgic from the times that I had a really good from when I had a really good time growing up in New York City, working and growing up there. He's just like one of the uh, people that remind me of the good times there in New York. You know,
Okay. I haven't heard of him, but
he's like a shock comic. Now it doesn't translate very well into today's kind of you know a world of controlled, mind control speech, political correctness. But he's making a comeback. His comedy, he's very
mhm.
based. He's the worst of the base the most based you can get. Very perverse.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like people lost their sense of humor, and just because of being overly politically correct and too touchy. And even Bill Maher is now really turned anti woke and anti leftist. So he's like
Mhm.
an emblem of that as well, in my mind. Gabagool. You know what the
Gabagoo.
gabagool is?
No, no. What does it mean?
That's a reference to the Sopranos. It's a form of Italian salami. It's like the gangster salami from the Sopranos. The HBO series on the
Oh,
mob.
yeah, yeah. I did watch it, but that term slipped
Yeah,
by me. I didn't.
it's
I
one of
didn't.
the funny expressions from the show.
Mhm.
Tony Soprano always used to eat the gabagool, and that's the Italian
I
American
remember the Bada Bing.
bada bing, yeah. And there's those like Italian American expressions. They're not really Italian. They're
Mhm.
more like modified Italian American kind of culture. But it's fun. It's part of New York. What New York City used to be all about. Used to be fun, and sadly, it's no longer the case. In
When
my
were you last in New York?
way back when, 2006,
All
just like a
right.
year after I returned here, I went back there to work for a few months, and yeah, I was glad. It convinced me that I made the right decision to leave, even way back then. But
What about working in New York in 2006 made you
no,
think
not
you'd made the right decision?
it was all over America. I was working as a traveling salesman, so I was being flown around. I went to Vegas. I went to California. I was in Texas, all over, and Northern California. So I was in San Francisco, Oakland, LA, all these places. I got to do a little touring of the country thanks to the job that I was working,
Hmm.
and it was a very it wasn't way back then in 2006. It was still a enjoyable to a certain extent. It wasn't completely rotten and spoiled back then. It was, but in my way, in my a perceptions of what was going to happen in the future, my sixth sense, my feeling, my intuition was telling me that it was all going to go downhill, and it did go downhill. And I feel validated. I feel sort of like you know. Proven correct. From my instincts were right. Sadly, it's like it's I don't have I don't bear any grudges against the good people in America. But even from what I was hearing from uh, the Noahide show that James hosts, things are really turning, upside down, apocalyptic, and like mutant apocalypse in terms of people's behavior in America. They're just letting themselves go completely. And it's very sad. They're losing all of their morals, all of their values, all of their virtues, all of their ethics. They're just throwing them out the window because I don't know what the hell is going on with the people there. It's just they've really been mind screwed. So
They
you've got the
can't be
political
reasoned
correct.
with, though.
What?
They can't be reasoned with.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
can't
you
be.
try to tell them stuff, and well, you're
Yeah,
not really sure if they understand.
yeah. I
And
mean,
if they agree with you, they might not agree with you a little later.
yeah. It's very strange. It's like for me, it's also proof positive that we've reached a point of you know a
Well,
closure.
I'd say dementia.
Dementia,
They're
but
not making sense.
they're not. But it's for me in my worldview and my religious worldview. This is closure. This is completion. We've reached the point where really the human race has become so perverse and has been made perverse, and it has been engineered to become debased and perverse. And look, I have a filthy comic as my avatar, and he's part of the whole thing, the whole degeneration and depravity and everything. But even a guy like Andrew Dice Clay, and even like it was Carlos Santana and all sorts of other musicians came out and spoke out against transgenderism and the LGBTQ agenda, and he was heavily anti-gay in the '80s, and he was the first one of the first people to be canceled by mainstream media and by the news networks, by HBO. They began with this guy, with Andrew Dice Clay. That's what I was talking to John about in one of our previous shows. Not too long. Was it yesterday or the day before? And even though he's pornographic and perverted and profanity laden, whatever, it's part of it was part of the kind of comedy that you had in New York at the time. But at least he, there was some sort of like fundamental heterosexual sort of norms and columns of sort of like rule, some backbone, some, don't let the degenerates totally take over your country or take over your way of living and dictate how to live your life to you. Because now everyone is coming out and saying, this is enough. We're not going to take this browbeating about transhumanism and transgenderism being shoved down our throats and forcing us to accept it. Otherwise, we get accused of being racists or homophobes or all these other things. Really, people have been pushed over the edge as far as like being told what to think and how to behave and what to say and what not to say. You have people even criticizing Trump for trying to pander still to the LGBTQ crowd and to the transgender crowd and to the leftist Democrats. It was Megyn Kelly in her last interview of Trump, trying to get him to make a concrete, absolute statement that a man cannot become a woman and a woman cannot become a man, and transgenderism is depraved and it's not something that deserves to be tolerated or made or normalized, in any society, because it perverts it, and it's only one
Well,
element.
obviously, it's going to go wrong if you don't know if you're male or female because
Yeah,
you don't know how to behave,
yeah, yeah,
whether to have children or not. And if you
right.
want children, how to go about courting,
It's
a member
another.
of the opposite sex. And it's all going to go wrong if you don't know
Yeah,
how to behave because you
but
don't know who you are.
it's just another overt tactic and attempt to screw everyone up, to screw society up, to screw the heterosexual male-female norms and the nuclear families and the ability for people to have normal relationships. It's messing with people. It's just another tool in the toolbox. There have been other tools throughout all the past several decades that screwed up both men and women and made it terribly impossible or difficult to have normal relationships and normal marriages and normal families. You know,
Well,
and
if people would just admit where it went wrong with feminism, basically, because if you
yeah,
look at it, I mean, gender equality causes gender confusion, which causes gender dysphoria.
yeah. Now they want to celebrate it. Now they're taking it one step up, while they've advanced several levels to gender dysphoria being thrown in your face in the form of transgenderism and transsexualism.
So, well, I
Yeah.
mean, reasonable people should assert themselves, but it seems to me that they're afraid.
Well,
I
a
think
lot
the
of
arguments can be made, but they're just afraid to make them. And this
no, no,
suggests that these
no.
people who claim to believe in God don't really believe in God because they prefer to worship the idol of their fear of being cancelled. They're
Yeah,
not doing the right thing. I mean, they have religious principles, these Muslims, these Jews, but they don't
no,
they
no.
don't
But
follow
it's
them.
the city people, like in Europe and England or whatever, in the United States, they just want to go along to get along, and they don't want to be bothered with. And it's like they don't have a lot invested in the country where they live as guests, or as not really loyal patriots, or people that really feel attached to the West, or that the West is their home. It's always been a second home, a place where they've been adopted and
Or
accepted.
they don't feel it's their place. It's
Yes,
like,
exactly.
well, you guys actually have lived here for generations. We don't want to be seen to be telling you what to do, and you only get mad at us and ignore us
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. That's it.
So I think, the leadership comes from Jews,
No, it doesn't.
doesn't
No,
it?
no, 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 no. I've been listening to a multi generational a Jewish woman in America, in Tennessee. She has a channel that goes by the name of Patriot Nurse, and I listened to some of her latest videos, and she actually put it into the correct kind of a description. American Jews are not following their religion. They're in the popular culture of America being all about the victim.
They're assimilated.
They're assimilated, and they're all a part of the we're the underprivileged, the victimized, the victim culture, and always
Yes,
about
because
the rights
because
and the rights.
Islam is
Huh?
fashionable Gentile causes.
Yes, yes, they've completely committed themselves to the fashionable Gentile causes in order to again go along to get along, and they're not committed to real Jewish values, although they claim.
The heretics, basically, that's what
Yeah,
Orthodox Jews
but they
think.
want to.
The
They want to adapt. Supposedly, they want to convince themselves that they're being Jewish and supposedly having Jewish values. Or they're adapting them to these popular Gentile fashion trends and fashionable whatever causes of theirs. And she herself said it, that this is the way a country dies. And it also eventually leads to resentment of Jews because they compromise so much. They don't stand their grounds on any of their the fundamentals, or their what's the word I'm looking for, a when you have not there, well, being committed, or having the word I'm looking for, it escapes me.
principles?
Principles. That's the word I was looking for. Principles. Not standing on their principles, not having a firm sort of like positions. They always get their wish. That's what she was talking about. And she's also very critical of what's going on in America. It's like, but she stays there. I keep on sending her messages. I told her your time is up. You're really fighting a losing battle, and you're going to end up leaving there really a withdrawn and blaming yourselves, and very very depressed. if you decide to stay there to the death, you will receive the death that you obviously don't want to experience. But a lot of them that will the diehards to the death, there will be those types that stay there. And she's multi-generational, going back to the time of I would say maybe not the Revolutionary War, but really many generations back. She's like an American Jew that somehow survived a assimilation in America. And but she doesn't have she's not a she doesn't have a Jewish husband or anything like that. But she
Mhm.
wants to hold on to her Jewish values and Jewish beliefs. She's conservative. She's a right wing, Second Amendment pro gun person, and she's not a typical Jew. She's a right wing Jew living in Tennessee. I'd recommend her channel. You can find her at Patriot Nurse, and you'll find a lot of things to critique, and you'll find a lot of things to try to make sense of as far as a certain type of personality, a certain type of Jew in America that's right wing conservative, but still assimilating. So, and she can't help it. Where she lives in the South, but that's being put to an end. There's a lot of things happening now that she doesn't really understand as a faithful believer, if she's believing in her faith, that the hand of God is really forcing the Jews to leave, and if they don't leave, they'll die. They'll be put to death by their Gentile, so-called friends, whether progressives, liberals, leftists, all of them. They're all turning on the Jews because the economic situation is becoming unbearable and untenable, and they can't. People are really being squeezed, and it always ends up, blowing back on the Jews because the Jews are put into positions of supposed leadership, but who's really running the show are the goddamn Satanists, the goddamn Luciferians, the goddamn Masons, the goddamn secret societies, the goddamn blue bloods, the goddamn not the nouveau riche and the old money, and the Jews that
Who are atheists and nihilists. That's all
yes,
they are.
yes.
And I think if people just understood that the reason why nobody's following the rules is because, well, they haven't got a religion. America doesn't have a religion. It doesn't have an official religion. And that means the ruling classes have no accountability to the ordinary American. Because
It's
if
a
you don't have
very
a religion, you can't say to Congress, oh, hey, that law you made, that's crazy. It's against us, as a people or whatever it is, because there is no official religion, so they can basically pass any law they
yeah.
like.
The seeds of their own destruction were actually planted from the beginning of the foundings of the country.
So all they have to do is find themselves an official religion, and, and,
No,
and they can't bear to do it, right?
no, they well, no,
Oh,
they, what they
we'll just muddle along and we'll be
that's what
okay.
they're doing, but they're in a process of permanent deterioration and degeneration to the point where they'll have hopefully like a death and rebirth of some kind. The end result of having this death that they're going through will result in some sort of rebirth that they'll have to actually bite the bullet, humble themselves. They will be humbled, and those that are that want to be a religious and have religious values and stop being depraved and stop being so degenerate. The ones that want to have a normal kind of like going back to a normal kind of a virtuous way of living with less degeneracy, less a unfettered hedonism, and no respect for any sort of boundaries. That's what America has become, and they think. And my Rabbi Nil Ben Alzi said this is what happened at the to the generation of the flood. In Hebrew, he said hishchitu et atzmam, and it meant they corrupted themselves, And we know from our Bible lessons, or awareness of the stories of the flood and the generation of the flood in Noah's time, that the kind of corruption we're talking about always has to do with fornication and perversion and abnormal sexual behavior. All right, breaking down all the barriers. You had bestiality, you had homosexuality, all of that was going on. Homosexuality, bestiality, incest, pedophilia, all of it was going on in the generation of the flood. And it was unfettered, with no boundaries. And it brought about the flood. All right. So my rabbi wasn't mincing words. He said that when the world does it to too great an extent. They corrupt themselves. They corrupt their bodies. They corrupt themselves. They bring about spiritual pollution. Then it brings about a destruction, a catastrophe, cataclysms. And I should tell you that he was warning of this, and he said that all the places of spiritual impurity and sexual depravity, they will be destroyed by the hand of God. And he said that not too long before the earthquake in Morocco, in Marrakesh. And I didn't know, but actually my mother heard a report a day before the earthquake in Marrakesh that actually Morocco is a hotbed for sex tourism for men looking for underage girls, for pedophile prostitution. And actually, that was going on in Marrakesh. There's a lot of the impoverished villages and the country people around Marrakesh were bringing their girls or the girls in the town. And I was in Marrakesh before I got married. It was like around 2010, something like that, or roundabouts. Was it even before? No, it was before. It was before the financial crisis of 2008. So it must have been like 2007 sometime. And way back then, I recall everything was conservative over there. I couldn't see any trace of sleaziness, or there was no sign of it. There was no talk of it in Morocco having child prostitution going on over there. It must have been on a very low level going on. But now, after the mess of the global financial crisis, and the people in Morocco, I guess, became more and more desperate, and they gave in, and it became a thing when you had tens of thousands of girls were reported as being prostitutes, underage prostitutes in Morocco, and it was a sort of like a mecca for pedophiles to go there to have sex with underage girls. And the place was somewhat flattened, I'd say. And it's only the beginning. So you know what Europe has in store for it, because Europe is the continent for for all that debauchery, and accepting it and normalizing it, and all the places where this goes on. So Tel Aviv is also going to catch a lot of flack. If there's going to be a war, Tel Aviv is going to catch all the missiles from the Hezbollah, from the Hamas. It's going to be the focal point of all the missiles. If the Jews in Israel don't do enough of soul searching and repentance and what we're upon the day of judgment, so they'll have to do what's called in Hebrew cheshbon nefesh. So it's like you have to do what's called a self-evaluation, or you have to cheshbon. You have to do an accounting of your behavior, an accounting of your soul, an accounting of your all the deeds and misdeeds you've committed. So, but still, Tel Aviv is an LGBTQ mecca, and that brings about God's wrath and devastation. And we'll see what happens. It's being put to an end now. And the humbling is already beginning, because the signs are that the banking crisis is just around the corner. with for the whole entire world. China is also hiding a lot of its issues. They're not as strong as they are supposedly taking the place of America as the superpower or the leading a superpower. Give me a second. I'm drinking my matcha tea. 1 minute. Mm. Mm. And that's good stuff. That's healthy for you.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, people assumed because nothing really traumatic happened over the many years that they were being depraved and debaucherous, that nothing would happen. It's the same story with Sodom and Gomorrah and the a generation of the flood. They get overconfident. They get cocky. They think because so much time has passed and no judgment has befallen them that it would never come. But here we are. And so the world is being cleansed of this kind of pollution and this kind of, permissiveness. They're no longer as, cocky and arrogant about it because they see that the world is coming apart at the seams. And so they're no longer going to flaunt it. And people, I'm feeling that a lot of people have no patience for this kind of a depraved, sick, degenerate behavior out in the streets. They don't want to talk. I mean, the cities in America. I don't know about London, but the cities in America are totally apocalyptic at this point. They have their routines and they have their daily routines, and they try to maintain their routines. But all the illusions of routine and normalcy are falling apart. And I think in London as well, because the inflation I heard is running wild in London, and people are becoming desperate there as well. And in all the big cities of the West, of Europe, Germany is in official recession, and inflation is through the roof over there. And there being a sort of pressure to cut ties with China, so they're being undermined, they're being sabotaged by the ruling
But I
class.
mean, why are they so spineless? They're so spineless because they have no principles. They have no principles because their religion has failed. And it's the easiest thing to tell these people that Christianity is kaput.
Yeah, it's their arrogance, it's their pride versus the Jews for 2,000 years. They
Well,
can't
the
swallow
Jews
their
won't
pride.
tell them either.
No, but they don't want to swallow their pride. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. If they reject the Jesus, and if they reject the perversion of Judaism that is Christianity, and they try to invent themselves or rebuild themselves, restructure themselves around religious laws that will actually galvanize them and give them some spine and give them some a courage and give them some real sort of virtues that they can stand behind, they'll have to swallow their pride and admit that their parents, their grandparents, and all the generations, great, 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 whatever, all of them were wrong, and they believed in lies, and it's a very hard pill to swallow.
So they kind of need to have it hammered in, and nobody is prepared to do it.
Yeah, well, the world will find out that there is a God. They will find out that the story of Jesus for 2,000 years has been a form of state
Yeah, I mean,
mind
you
control.
don't actually have to believe in God to see the problem with idolatry, because the worst thing about idolatry is basically you're just so dumb that you worship something that is weaker than yourself. Which is, it's like, well, why would you make an idol and then worship it? Because you have
Yeah,
the power to
creating a
destroy
customer.
this idol, but you choose to worship it as if it were, God, but it's just so dumb. So
Yeah,
all these idolaters are worshipping something that is weaker and stupider than they are.
yeah. I think many Christians now are turned off to Jesus. They realize after listening and seeing and hearing so much evidence of what was really done to create this false god, and what it was, the inspiration and the sort of the sinister sort of dark humor that was the inspiration for the invention of Jesus. having it be Roman state propaganda for the Flavian dynasty during the time of the rebellions, and really making it crystal clear that that's how it was brought about. It's putting a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. For me, any talk of Jesus now, or any talk, it's just immediately sort of like no, no, not in any way, shape, or form am I gonna even entertain listening to your arguments, trying to convince me of Jesus. Okay. Whereas before it was traditional, and the traditional resistance to missionaries and to the Jesus stories, and knowing as a Jew that that's not what I believe in, and there's reasons why I don't believe in Jesus. But now, any mention of trying to tell me that Jesus is the Messiah, and that Jesus is God or the Son of God, it is an instant no. And I know it in my mind, and there's no convincing me otherwise. And they would have to lobotomize me. They would have to drug me. They would have to cripple my mind. And that's what actually the state does. That's actually what
To
the
all
state.
people, it's like, after all these centuries, it never occurred to them to ask, well, hey, when did Jesus become God? You know, and I think they didn't even know he was Jewish. They
Yeah,
didn't
but
even
well,
know
what the whole
he was
story of
Jewish until fairly
yeah,
recently.
but the whole story of the Jesus is a form of psychological lobotomy. From the get go, and that's what the elites have borrowed from. They're the Atwell called them the intellectual descendants of the Flavians. These are authoritarians and tyrants that have found ways to control the minds of their subjects, but without having to give them like an electrical lobotomy, or drugging them,
They just had to threaten to burn them at the stake, and
yeah.
then these subjects of these absolute Christian monarchs would pretend to believe.
Yeah, but they actually made them enjoy it. They created a gilded cage around them, so they enjoyed their
Their Christian culture.
their Christian culture and their illusions. And it actually, it's like Hollywood. It's like what we talked about. It's feeding them false narratives, and creating a gilded cage for them that actually worked. That gave them pleasure, until their death. It's a form of opium. It is. Marx, even though he was a gay, also degenerate in the service of the royals of England, by way of the Fabian Society, another one of their operatives, another one of their apparatchiks, to the ruling class. When he said this, it was during the time of the Enlightenment, and the whole movement it was a means of co-opting the Enlightenment, and perverting it and poisoning it. Marx again, but he did say something smart. As far as the religion of Western culture, of the Western world, is an opiate of the masses, because it's a false religion. It's a means of control. It's a false dialectic. It's a means of control. It's not about really, genuinely wanting to believe in the creator of the universe, and worshiping him, and not having the state in the way. The state, Jesus is literally the state in the way of man knowing God. All right. So yeah, it's not, and the poor saps for generations that were born into this false religion were really from childhood convinced that it's a genuine and valid means of worshiping the Creator, when the state was in their business from day one, from birth to death. And it's just the same as it is today in America and in the West. It's the state and the people, the few, corrupt and powerful, thinking that it's their right to really mind control people, and to have control over their lives from birth till death via corporations and governments and other institutions. It's literally the bastard child of what happened 2,000 years ago. It's just an extension of it.
I thought that you're trying to tell them that they're being tricked and lied to for generations is a bit like telling some person that their spouse has been unfaithful to them, you're going to end up being shot as messenger,
Yeah, they
right?
love it. They love they hold their culture, sacred for it's to them. I lived in Europe for a while, and it's about their pride. It's about their heritage. It's about their legacy, and it gets spoiled. The illusion gets spoiled when you tell
Well,
them.
they've suffered for 500 years. I mean, that's what I've been trying to tell them. It's like, well, the wars of the Reformation, what was that all about? It's that was Christianity failing to
Yeah,
serve the purpose of these European Christians, because it engulfed Europe in a European war of religions, which is how they called it. That
yeah.
was the wars of the Reformation, and it raged on. And then they had World War One, and then they had World War Two, and before that the Napoleonic War.
It was a genuine attempt to break from the power of the elites and the few and the ruling classes. They saw the disparity between them and the few ruling elites in Europe, and there was a genuine human movement to want to create more freedom and equality, and to take and not live as feudal serfs under the rule of monarchs and
Yes, republicanism.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
was that
And
was
it's been
genuine.
three times, Sam, three times. The American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Russian Revolution, and they're still clinging to Christianity.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
it is the opiate of the masses, literally. I mean, it really it eats at them to have it, and some Gentiles are strong enough to resist, break away, and say, "I was duped." They'll be honest with themselves, and they'll say, "Well, there is a God, and I want to worship Him." And they'll either want to become Noahides, or they'll want to come closer to Judaism and convert to Judaism, or become Islamic, or become Muslim. They want to do away with the idol, because it is like you see the Mr. Dice Man here smoking a cigarette. Jesus,
mhm,
as Rabbi Singer referred to him, as like cigarettes or drugs. It is. And
mhm.
Marx was right to associate Christianity with opium, with drugs. It's not a genuine form of worshiping the Creator, or having some sort of relationship with God, when you have a drug in the way, when you have an intercessor that was
Yes, you can
created
tell
by
by how they worship, because I've been to a few talks given by rabbis, and the atmosphere is like a class. People listening are asked questions, and the told off if they get the wrong answer. There's a kind of questioning and a dialogue, and people actually having a dialogue. But if it's some Christian
But I'll tell you something.
ceremony,
Yeah,
they're just expected to,
yeah, it
do
doesn't
what
work.
they're supposed to
It
do.
just doesn't work anymore for people that are genuine and are scared at seeing how a Western society and Western culture is so depraved and degenerate. It is because of this drug and intercessor, this opiate, this Jesus that forgives all your sins. It's the easiest crutch, and it's the easiest out for people that want to be lascivious, depraved, and fornicators and rapists and molesters and what have you. It's like you can you could be a genocidal
Yeah, you,
lunatic.
you just hire a priest to give you
Yeah,
absolution.
absolutely.
It's
It's the worst.
disgusting,
It's
and
the
they can't
worst.
get enough of it,
They can't get enough
even
of
though
it.
they don't really believe it.
Yeah, but it's just a psychological out for them. It's a crutch, and it was invented for them by tyrants that were mad tyrants, and high functioning psychopaths from 2,000 years ago, that just wanted control over their subjects, over the masses, over their empire. And that's where this religion comes from. And it's so it panders to them. It has no real a sort of structure, to the point where the structures can always be adjusted. As
Yeah,
long as
yeah,
the
the
power.
story is so stupid. It's like, well, what did Jesus do that was so heroic? He just got himself killed by saying his
No,
papa was God. That's it.
no. It was very well thought out. It was very well thought out. You know, the aspirations of the people from 2,000 years ago that were fighting the empire and co-opting it in order to create some sort of you know some sort of invention. Not well, they did want to structure something as far as giving them. It's a give and take, but giving them enough of a good, of a high, of a feel good kind of fuzzy, warm and fuzzy feeling to the point where they just stay pacified and go along with the state, with the organizers, with the administrators. It was very well thought out over many decades and hundreds of years. They kept on tweaking it and adjusting it and using the philosophies and religions of the ancient world of pagan idolatry. What worked for thousands of years, they also used elements of it. But the mishmash Frankenstein creation that served them so well for centuries is now finally exhausted itself. It's atrophied. We've talked about it enough to the point where you see that the end result of it is that we've gone back to the Sodom and Gomorrah and the generation of the flood, and like you said, the Christianity is failing, and a lot of even the institutions of religion in the West are all failing, and people have to look themselves in the mirror, and they'll have to say, there are consequences. We created such a stench, and there is a God, and judgment will fall, and judgment is falling. And this is what they have the hardest time dealing with. It's having to take responsibility. There's no easy out, and Jesus won't forgive you because Jesus is fake as fuck. Fake, an invention of the state. So that's a hard pill to swallow, that you'll finally have to take responsibility for all the shit you did, thinking that Jesus would forgive you. Mm.
Yes, and they should be able to see that, but it's their deadly sin of pride. They're not going to admit that they've been duped. And maybe they're saying, well, whatever that's left of Western civilization, it might last me my lifetime. But I don't care if I don't have, um, I don't care what happens to me after I'm dead. And they'd usually be, well, they're not married parents, basically. So they
Well,
have no biological investment in the future generation, so they don't care. As long as they, go to their graves without having to admit they're wrong, then
yeah,
they're okay.
no. The reckoning is upon us now. The hammer is falling, and the ones that will survive it, that are not Jewish, that are Gentiles, they will have a place and a purpose and a role to play in the aftermath of the judgment and the reckoning. There will be remnants of the people that will survive this judgment that's coming, and it's not going to happen right away. That like some catastrophic event, cataclysm that millions of people die on the spot. It's just going to be a long, drawn out, miserable process for a lot of it, and that's the just God's judgment for you get what you deserve. You actually have to pay for your deeds and misdeeds, and it's very pertinent, seeing that we're just a couple of days away from the Day of Judgment, from Yom Kippur, and
Mhm.
after Yom Kippur, or before, just around this time, things are really bubbling up and things are really escalating quickly. And a lot of people had the sixth sense and the intuition to realize that it would be around this time. And even my rabbi said it, that it would be around this time. And he also said, as far as you know, survivors and remnants and Gentiles having a purpose for for the time once the Messiah is revealed and after, it's not like they're just totally disappeared and be wiped off the face of the earth. That's not the case. people will survive, but a lot will be kept alive in order to pay. The God is not a sucker. He's not a sucker. You end up having to pay in this world or the next, and so at this point, he'll make people pay. He won't allow them to die. He'll leave them in such a state of misery that they'll be wishing for death, and they'll be so miserable, and they'll suffer to such a great extent that it's just their way of paying back what they owe. It's their penance that they'll have to make for just being as sick and depraved and degenerate, and allowing themselves to. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I've heard. That's what I know. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of death, but a lot of people will not be allowed to die because they'll have to pay. They'll have to atone. It's going to be there,
like Prometheus.
Yes, it's atonement. It's a process of atonement. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement, not just Judgment Day. Rosh Hashanah is Judgment Day. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. But
I thought Rosh Hashanah is New Year's Day.
Yeah, but it's also called Judgment. The Judgment begins on Rosh Hashanah, and it ends once Sukkot, the Tabernacles, which comes after Yom Kippur. It's all the high holy days of the days of awe, and that's what we're living.
Confusing, because I thought Judgment Day was when we're all going to be judged for our sins, and that's
no, that's the ultimate Judgment Day. But Rosh Hashanah is also called judgment. Look it up. Here, we can Wikipedia it. Rosh Hashanah.
Which begins tomorrow.
No. Rosh Hashanah happened last week. Yom Kippur begins on
the 24th.
Yeah. So, wait a minute.
It was the 15th to the 17th was Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, and so Rosh Hashanah is called Judgment Day. It's like a minor
head of the year.
Head of the year, but it's also called Judgment Day. If I'm not mistaken. Wait a minute. Here, I'll put it in there in the Google. 1 minute. And Rosh Hashanah.
It begins a 10-year period of penitence, culminating in Yom Kippur.
Yeah, but it's given. Here it is. It's given this term Judgment Day, and here is an explanation why. Day of Judgment, not Judgment Day, Day of Judgment. Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment for all mankind. On this day, man is judged for all of his actions and all that will transpire and occur during the coming year. Day of Judgment, not the Judgment Day, but it's like one of those, for the year to come. And so
I suppose it's what preparing you for Rosh Hashanah. It's like you've got 10 days to, think about your sins.
Yes. It's a time for an accounting, a personal accounting, and a desire to want to repent and to sort of regret the terrible, the bad things, the sins you've committed. It's a time of doing, what's the word for the expression for when you
introspection.
Introspection is a very good word to use. Yes, introspection. And so you know what, I've been hearing a lot of things from the alternative media figures like Cliff High and other soothsayers or modern day prophets and whatever they call themselves, travelers, whatever. So they're using the whatever their methods that they're using to a forecast or to predict events, and they're saying by year's end. But which calendar are they using? Because they're using a lot of information coming from the internet and coming from out of their intuition, or it's their guesswork, and most often they're not on point with their timing and dates and their speculations of what's about to come. But if you ask me, The year's end is already here, according to the Hebrew calendar. So I go according to the Hebrew calendar. Time is up. The year has ended. We're into we're exiting the a Shemitah year. We're going into a Jubilee, and this is the Jubilee of Jubilees. It's you there's a lot of a, also sort of guesswork that goes into the years and how many cycles of jubilees would have to come about. It was during the dedication of the Second Temple, and there's a lot of disagreements on the exact date when the Second Temple was actually dedicated. But it's somewhere around 2,500 years ago, during the time of the Persian, the Medes and Cyrus and all these people that the empire that took over the Babylonian Empire, and freed the the exiles of that were in Babylon, the exiles of Babylon, and that was somewhere around 2,500 years ago. And when they dedicated the Second Temple, it was Nehemiah and Ezra, the exiles that came back from Babylon, from what is now modern day Iraq. They made some sort of decrees and declarations that end of days would arrive after 50 jubilees, and jubilees occur every 50 years. So you multiply 50 times 50, that's 2,500 years. And the exact dates and the exact time for when the temple was dedicated or finally rebuilt, it's still up for debate. People don't know the exact dates. There's a lot of disagreements as to when that really happened. So, but we're in the time. We're in the allotted time. We're in the time frame of it, and it's all being proven to be true with all the everything that even the Christians, according to what they believe in their altered versions of the Hebrew Bible and their amendments or attachments by way of the New Testament. They borrowed obviously from the Hebrew prophets, and so they see signs, they see things, and they'll say, well, maybe it's not exactly as what we thought, but it is happening, and things that this what's happening now is biblical. And it's prophetic, and it's end times, and there's agreement from all three religions that we're in a special time, and each one, all of them have their dogmas. All of them believe that they'll be top dogs, or that they'll get the upper hand on everybody. But it's God's decision, and it's God's will, and people will know that there's a God. This is the time to pay up and shut up. You'll have, all this time that God allowed them, just like the generation of the flood and the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. They never thought that, they'd have to pay or atone. And now they'll be shocked to realize that they'll have to pay. There's a debt that's owed to the Creator. And so like you said, it's like Prometheus. A lot of them that will wish for death, and they won't be allowed to die. This is Jews included. Jews that refuse to do a penance and refuse to return to being faithful believers. This includes many Orthodox and religious Jews that pretended over the many years that were not in a. They wanted to convince their flocks and convince themselves that this isn't the time for messianic revelation, because they had it too good, whether in Israel or in America, with the way they had their arrangements or what have you. And this is all according to our oral traditions and our commentaries, and from many sages that would be this way. And also, it's mentioned in the prophets that many descendants of the Jews would actually turn against the Jews of Israel, and serve evil, and serve the globalists or the World Economic Forum or the power elite. And they'll turn on the Jews, and they'll turn on their own people, and they'll turn on Israel, and just for their own selfish self interests, and to protect their own twisted sense and warped sense of what they believe reality should be about with their sick of beliefs and ideals. Jews pushing and promoting all the depravity, and legitimizing it, or trying to normalize it, or argue for it, or tolerate it. It's the most intolerable things. How much can you tolerate? Millions of abortions. How much can you tolerate taking children, grade school children, and mutilating them, sexually mutilating them, and screwing them up. It's satanic. It's wholly satanic. And you have Jews thinking that it's virtuous or it's right. They're warped. They're insanely warped, and this is prophetic. It's written that it would be this way. The Jews would turn.
Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening. It's written in I forget which prophet, but it mentions that certain types of Jews would turn on God, on His laws, and on the land, and on the beliefs that the Jews hold, and they're out of the woodwork. They're like shameless now, and they'll whatever, God will deal with them in one way or another. Many of them won't be allowed to die, and they'll have to do penance, and they'll have to atone through their suffering until the day they die, and then in the afterlife they'll also be punished, and in the afterlife they'll have to atone, and in the afterlife their souls will have to be cleansed. They'll go through a Jewish purgatory, and then hell, a Jewish hell. It's all about our beliefs are not the same as the Christians, but it's the afterlife is about also paying the dues for your actions in while you were alive in this realm, in this existence. So you know what, I'm pretty at this point very give me the right expression. You always have a way with words. It's like I'm satiated. I'm satisfied.
You finished all you want to say. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for giving us the benefit of your opinion,
All
and
right.
I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to college show. We'll talk to college.
Yes,
No problem.
yes, I know he's talking to Jay. Everybody, go over to Khalid's stream and listen to him talking about making the right choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trick to making better choices, proof of
Yeah.
afterlife. That's a title. So off we go there. And
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Thanks, Anna.
Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire. Bye.
All righty. Bye.